Hey guys, what's going on? It's Jay, and what I got for you today is part 2 of the beginner's guide for the DJI Pocket 3. Now, in this part 2, I'm mostly going to focus on the app. So by the end of this video, you guys will know how to use the app, and you'll be confident that you can navigate around it, and you'll be able to get better footage because of the increased power and visibility that using a tablet or a phone gives you while using the Pocket 3. So it's like an extension to the Pocket 3 basically when you're using this. And basically you can use it as a remote control to control the camera. You could use it as an external monitor, which is super easy to see yourself, if the camera's a couple feet away from you, if the camera's low to the ground, because the screen on the Pocket 3, it just swivels. But if you have the camera away from you, you can't see it. That's where the app comes in. In addition to that, the app offers you more power. So there's a couple of features in the app that you don't have on the gimbal. In addition, you can also review your photos, download your photos to your phone using the app, and you can even edit your photos and create little mini movies, projects. There's actually auto projects that are in there where you can just select a bunch of clips and it'll automatically create a little 30-second movie for you, which is awesome. Like if you go to a park or whatever, like a theme park, and you record all day, you have 20 clips, you add all those clips and it'll put together a 30-second montage of your little vacation day sort of thing. And that's all just built into the app. All right, so the first thing I'm going to do, I'm just going to turn the Pocket 3 on. Now I'm going to launch the DJI Mimo app. And it's automatically searching for a device. It's going to see the Pocket 3 and it's automatically connecting. So I'm just going to click join. And at this point you can see it puts you into the album area. You can see on the very bottom of the screen you have album, home, editor, profile, and then in the center there's a picture of a camera. That's how you switch to controlling the Pocket 3. So now I'm at the home screen here. So this is what the home screen looks like. Again, if I go to album, these are your albums, so you can sort by photos, videos, favorites on the top you could see there. If you hit this little checkbox on the top here, you can now select multiple at the same time. So notice how you have batch select. So if you do batch select, it'll select all of those in that particular, time frame, which in this case it's the day. So I'll deselect that. Or you can just select, willy-nilly like so. And then on the bottom here, you have the option to download them, which I already did, so it's not allowing me to download them. Or you can favorite them here or delete them. On the very bottom, you can see the garbage can and the favorite icon. So I'll just do a favorite there to show you. So you can see they're favorited. Now you can click on one and play it back if you want. And you can see the ones that I have already downloaded don't have that little download icon on the top left of the thumbnail. You see the little download icon? So look at the one right below it, how it doesn't have that. That's how you know it's already saved on your device. And that's pretty much how that works. So anyways, let's go to down here where we can control the device. So I'm going to click the little camera icon. All right, guys, so here we are looking at the screen. So on the top left, we have the home button. That'll bring us back to home where we were before. I'm just going to hit the little camera icon again and go back. You can see on the right-hand side, we have a slider for our different modes. So that's where all the modes are. I'm going to go over these in more detail in a moment. But I just want to show you what this looks like on photo mode first. So again, we're in photo mode. You can see that on the right-hand side. And on the left-hand side, below the home button, we have this aspect ratio button here. And this is where you can change that to 1:1, which will put it into a square shape like so. Or you can do 16:9, which is the default. So that's what that button does. Now down here, we have a little timer right below that. And this will give us a countdown timer, which is super helpful if you're trying to take selfies and, you just need a couple of seconds, to put the phone down before it takes a shot. So I like this feature. I'm just going to leave it off for now. And then below that, we have these 3 dots. That's going to bring us into the more advanced area. So in this case, for photos, this is what it looks like by default. Now you can turn the grid on. You got grid lines here. You can see the little grid lines came up. And you got the grid plus diagonal you can add if you want, so you see what that looks like. And you can also hit this Pro Mode button here. When you enable Pro Mode, it's going to give you a lot more features. You have Focus Mode. Now you'll notice it says continuous and single. So single will just focus and then hold that position until you take the photo. Continuous will continuously focus, so if you move the camera around, the focus can and will change. That's the advantage of single, is it won't change once you have it locked. So you got white balance that controls the color temperature. So whether it's warm looking or cold looking, basically, auto works great, but sometimes the image might look a little too cold or a little too warm. You could dial that in with white balance if you want to. You have an overexposure alert icon. So if you turn that on, watch what happens when I scroll up here to this light source. See, the overexposure is the zebras. So if I go in here and turn that off, you can see how those zebras go away. And now if I want to adjust for that exposure, all I have to do is double tap on the overexposure area, and that puts that little frame up, which is a little hard to see, but that frame sets the focus and the exposure. So you could then go in and raise it up or lower it if you want. You could see the little sun coming up. It's kind of hard to see that little sun, but that's where you can go and dial that stuff in. Now, to just reset everything, what you can do is hit this button over here. It looks like a four-way button. If you hit that, it'll bring you back to the center. Now you can see I have this auto icon here on the right below the home button, which wasn't there before because I'm in Pro mode. So now I have all these other features. So here you can control your exposure value. That's what EV stands for, exposure value compensation. So you could lower that a little bit. And you could also do that by raising that sun up and down like I showed you before, right next to the exposure box. So if I click on that and raise it down, you can see here on the bottom it now says -3. So let me tap over here to move the exposure, something like that. Now if I bring that sun down, you can see here now it says -1 on the bottom of the screen. So that's giving you an indication of what your exposure is at. You could also see that if you go into this auto area over here. You can see the EV is now at -1. So you can change it by using that dragging up and down with that little sun next to the exposure box, but I find that kind of hard to do. So I would rather do it in here myself. So let's go back down here to the 3 dots. And again, we enabled Pro mode, so now I already showed you how that auto and manual mode feature comes up. I'll go back to that in a second. I just want to scroll down and show you the rest of these. We also have a histogram, so let me turn off the exposure alert. You know what that does now. Histogram brings up this guy. So this is a visual illustration of your image's exposure. So on the left-hand side is where the blacks are. On the right-hand side is where the whites are. So by black, I mean like 0, like it's dark black. And white, I mean 100% bright. And that's when it starts clipping and you get those clip warnings. So that's what the histogram does. So it gives you a good indication of where the exposure is. And sometimes it's hard to tell depending on what's in your scene and stuff like that. So if you adjust the exposure, you'll actually see the histogram change. So let me show you that. If I go back here and I go to auto and I just tap down on the EV value, you could see how that histogram is changing, see? If I go back over here and raise it up, you can see the histogram moving to the right, and it's simulating the exposure that we have on the camera. So let me go back down here to these 3 dots. I just wanted to show you the histogram there. I'm just going to turn it off because it just adds a little bit of clutter to the screen. And then we have the format. I have it set to JPEG plus RAW. RAW will give you a little extra editing latitude if you have, software that's capable of processing the RAW files. I use Adobe Lightroom, for example. So it just gives you a little more editing leeway. JPEG is like already a processed photo, but you can enhance it in this app in the editing area. You can enhance the photos and stuff and the video footage, so keep that in mind. And then we have timecode display. Timecode display, if you turn that on, it'll actually bring up a timecode here on the bottom. This is utilized for if you're syncing up multiple cameras using timecode. And it's like a feature in editing software where you can just sync up all the footage based off timecode. That's what that is. Pretty powerful feature for a camera like this, to be honest with you. I don't ever use it myself, but it's a nice tool for those that may or may not need it. All right, guys, I just want to take a moment to thank the sponsor of this video, which is you. You guys are the sponsor of this video. That's right. You guys are the ones that are watching the video. You guys are the ones asking questions and commenting below. But you guys are also the ones going into that description area, clicking the affiliate links, which greatly helps me out, and I really appreciate it. So be sure to hit that subscribe button and give me a thumbs up as well. And thank you for sponsoring this video. Now, let me just go back over here to this auto button and show you manual. So now we're in manual mode for photography, and this is where you can go and dial everything in. So notice how I have the ISO hard set to 50. I can put that on auto, and everything will adjust. So now that I have the ISO in auto, on the top here, you have the option for maximum ISO. So I'm going to set that to 3200. I don't want to go any higher than that. And again, that's ISO in auto. Now you can go in here and you can set your shutter speed to whatever you want because we're in full manual mode here. So if I were taking photos, I'd want to have it at something like 1/60th of a second just to get a nice sharp shot. But you can go in here and dial that if you want. So if you want a slower shutter speed, for example, like if you want to get like 1 full second, you're trying to get some blurry water, something like that, you can go all the way to 1 second. So you can see here I have a 1 second exposure now, and the scene is actually overexposed. It's at plus 1.7. So there's really not much I can do. I can set the ISO to 50. That's as low as the ISO will go. When you're in auto, it seems like it won't go below 100. But if you set it at 50, you can get +3 is where the exposure's at. So it's actually pretty close. Outside, you could imagine how bright it is. I'm in my studio, so it's not that bright. So for example, if I was outside, I'm just simulating right now, guys. The exposure would look more like this if I was outside and I wanted to get a 1 second exposure. It might even be brighter than this. So how you could combat that is with ND filters. Now I got this really good kit that comes with ND filters for the Pocket 3. I will have it linked below. I looked at all the kits and this seemed like the best one for the money in my opinion, so that's the one I went with. It comes with 4 ND filters. You can see there's like 4 of them in there and they're different power. So you just got to reach in with your finger and grab it. And yes, it's very difficult to grab these without touching them and getting your greasy fingerprints all over them, but it just is what it is. So these things are actually magnetic and they just snap on to the front of the gimbal here. So I just want to show you that really quick. So let me hit that button. Now I'm going to hit the top right button to put this into selfie mode. So now the camera's facing me. And now you can see just how overexposed this is. Now watch when I put this on the front. It's basically acting like sunglasses. So when I snap this on the front, like so, you could see how much the exposure went down. And you can actually stack these things, so I could add more if I wanted to. So if I go in here now, into the manual area, so again, you can see I'm still overexposed here. So let me put a more powerful one on. So now you can see the exposure is quite a bit less. So again, that's what these ND filters do. So it'll help you get proper exposure when it's really bright and you can't. So again, a 1 second exposure is kind of insane, but it's good for like time lapses and things like that. So I just wanted to take a minute to show you guys. So I'm just going to pull this back off. So again, these things are just magnetic. They snap on and they act like sunglasses at varying darkness power, basically. So you would use this to slow the shutter speed down. That is the purpose of the ND filters. And there's quite a few reasons why you might want to slow them down. I already discussed this in part 1, but when you're recording video, you're going to want it to slow down for you to double the frame rate. So if you're recording at 24p, ideally you're going to want the shutter speed to be 1/50th of a second on this camera for the best like quality footage. So that's another reason why I would use these ND filters. So it's, you know, basically getting the shutter speed where you want. And in bright conditions, you have no choice but to put sunglasses on the lens because the lens does not have an aperture diaphragm, which you could use to help control exposure. So because it doesn't have the aperture diaphragm, you got to use the NDs. Even if it did have an aperture diaphragm in extreme bright conditions, or if you want extremely slow shutter speeds, you would have to use an ND filter anyway. So I just wanted to take a little time to explain that to you guys for those, you know, that are beginners. All right, so let me go back into manual mode here, and I'm just going to hit the auto button again to bring everything back to auto. And like I said, you can go in here and it's just automatically setting everything for you based on where the camera's at and stuff. If I just hit this button over here again, it'll bring it back to the center, and you can see the exposure is looking pretty good. So for the most part, that's pretty much it as far as photo mode goes. Now there's stuff around the scene here. You got battery life, you got SD card, JPEG plus RAW. Again, if you want to switch it into selfie mode, you have this option on the top here, and that'll, you know, put it back to regular mode or put it back to selfie mode like I have it in. And then down here now, this is another option here. You can see these 2 little triangles. what that will do, I'll show you, it'll switch it to the other way. So it'll give you like a mirrored effect. So if like the text that you're reading is backwards, you can press this and the text will be correct, for example. So it's just a way to fix your footage. You could fix it in post as well, but it's definitely easier to do on the app if you want. Down here, you have the gimbal modes. So these are the different gimbal mode options. Like we're in photo mode, so but you could still control how the gimbal behaves in photo mode. So you could just click in here and cycle through the different modes. I already discussed these in Beginner's Guide Part 1 for this video, and I show you exactly what each one does. So be sure to reference that video if you want to see how these work. But this is where you can change them. I'm just going to put it back on default, which is follow. And then speed-wise, you have default, fast, and then you have slow. So I'm going to leave that on default as well, but that's where those options are. And you also have a question mark here, which is really cool. So this will show you what the different modes do in case you forgot, you don't have to go back to the beginner's guide, to look. You could just go through here and watch, and it shows you the rotational speed as well. So there's little tools there to help you learn if you forget, even I forget sometimes. You got to go back, the deal. So that's what that does. Now, one other thing I wanted to show you was the zoom here. It's set to 1x. And if you click on it, you can actually drag. So you could zoom in and zoom out, like so. So you do have the ability to zoom, which is nice, and that's also available in photo mode. All right, guys, so one thing I wanted to show you in photo mode here, if you hit the 3 dots on the bottom and you go to the gimbal and handle, you can change this to the easy control. And if you switch this to the easy control, let me just turn the histogram off there. You actually get 2 joysticks. So you see how now you have an up and a down over here, and then you have a left and a right on the other side. So you can use 2 thumbs. And it's, just hitting that icon on the top to bring it to the center there. So this might be easier for you guys to control if you're using 2 thumbs and you need to really precision control the gimbal as it moves around. It's just called easy gimbal control. So I just prefer having it on, and that gives you the 1 joystick that you can do all directions with, which I just much prefer. Now, the other thing in here is calibrate. That will calibrate the gimbal. If your gimbal is acting funny and it's not sitting level and stuff, you can hit calibrate and that will fix that. On the very bottom here is where your device management stuff is. You can format your video card, video compression and stuff like that is in there. All right, guys, so still in photo mode. Before we go to video, I just wanted to show you, you have the panorama options here. Now, this is super cool. I love panoramas. It basically allows you to get a much higher resolution image with a wider angle view than your lens is capable of. So you could see a lot more in panorama mode. So if you go over here on the left, you could see those are your 2 different panorama options. So you have a large one, which will give you more like 9 shots, or you have a 180, which will give you just like a left to right. So let me do a 180 quick. There we go. So I just took that panorama. And this is what it looks like. You can see that's pretty cool, right? So that's just the left to right panorama. So now if we do the other panorama, I'll click on that one. And you can also set the timer for this, guys. So if you want to get in the scene, you can set the timer, for example. And you have manual mode as well, same as the other modes. It's kind of redundant, but I'm just showing you real quick. So again, this is the larger pano. So let me do this one. I'll show you what it looks like. It's telling you to keep device upright. Yeah, it moves quite a bit for this one. So there we go. All right, so now if we go to playback here on the bottom, you'll be able to see, here's the panorama. So that's what you get in that mode. And you can see it's pretty darn cool how that works, isn't it? I mean, that's amazing if you ask me. So I love the panorama modes, and that's where you can go to use them. So I'm just back here in the pano area. And then the last thing you have is the live stream option. So if you go in here, you can start your live stream. You can publish it to YouTube and Facebook by adding your credentials and stuff like that. And you just hit the live stream option to start live streaming. So it's just preparing it right now. So it takes a little while to do that. It adjusts the screen, and then it's going to search for Wi-Fi networks and all sorts of stuff like that. So I'm just going to hit cancel. but that's where you can go to set up the live streaming stuff. Now, let me just switch it to video mode here because I want to show you a couple of things that video mode has. So you can see now the footage looks quite flat, and that's because I'm in D-Log mode. I'm going to show you that in a second here. If I go into auto, this is where the options are for auto, and you can also do manual here. So these are that's manual mode, and it works just like photography mode. You can dial in your ISO, shutter speed, and your exposure value manually if you want. And auto mode gives you the option to change your auto exposure, and that will adjust the settings for you. So that's pretty cool. Now if you go down here, this is where your frame rates are. So you can go in here and change your frame rates. You have 24, 50, 60, and so forth. So on the bottom is your frame rates, and then on the top here is your different resolutions. And 4K is what I'm going to choose. So that looks pretty good. 4K at 24p, that's what I want. But you can change that stuff here. And again, in different modes, you will have different frame rates. So there's a slow motion mode I'm going to show you in a minute, and the frame rate options will be different. So if we scroll down one more here, we have the Glamour Effects, which I have on right now. So I have face smoothing on, so I can turn that. I can actually dial it in so you can see. Let me just click and drag around my face to enable active track. All right, so now active track's enabled. So to enable active track on the device, double tapping doesn't work like it does on the actual Pocket 3. You actually have to click and drag a box around whatever you want to track when you're using the app itself. So that's just so you're aware, that's how that works. So if I go back into the Beautify here, so if I turn this off, you can see my skin will go back to like normal. And now if I drag it up, you can see how much smoothing it adds. It's quite a bit. Now you can change the brightness of the skin as well, which kind of helps smooth out if you have like rough skin. If you make it a little brighter, it'll smooth it out in addition to smoothing. Now slimming, this is a kind of a cool feature. You can make yourself look a little slimmer, and you can see there, I definitely look a little slimmer. If you go back, you can see my face just gets fat. Look at that. So there we go. Now you can go in here and you can adjust your eyes. Now you can make your eyes look a little bigger. So my eyes should look bigger right now. Let me raise it up. That's 100, and I'll lower it all the way down. So that's back to normal. That's 0. Put it back to 100 real quick. So again, because of my glasses, I'm not exactly sure how good that's going to look, but my eyes should look bigger. So this is cool, you know, if you're just playing around, and you don't have to jack this up to 100. You could just dial this stuff up like 10%, whatever, you know, whatever you feel like doing. Now you got dark circles. That's like the bags under your eyes. You can fix that. You can adjust the size of your nose. So you can make your nose look thinner if you want. Interesting. Now you got mouth here. You can play with your mouth size and shape, I guess, as well. Probably make your lips look bigger if you want to do that. Now you got teeth whitening. You want to make your teeth look better. That works pretty good, actually. Now you got lipstick. I'm not going to add lipstick, but I'll show you what it looks like. So you can add lipstick, but I would obviously not use that myself, but to each their own. Now you have a blush here, so you can add some blush to your cheeks. So you're basically putting makeup on. This is incredible power, guys. So again, it just depends on what you're doing. If you're one of those people that wants to make yourself look better and you want it right off the camera, these features are for you. Now you got brows. You can actually manipulate your eyebrows as well. You can make them darker. Look at that. So you can make them more pronounced. It's incredible how this works, like live like this. Now you can't adjust these while you're recording. You have to dial this stuff in. Once you hit record, this feature like locks. So I'm just going to turn this off though. I don't want any of it on. So now we're back to default there. So that's what the Glamour Effects do. And I really think some of you guys are going to enjoy playing with those features. It's kind of fun too, like with your kids and stuff, because you make their eyes big and you can get like little kids to laugh. You know, so you could use it for a number of reasons. I just wanted to show you on the bottom the 3 dots, and if we scroll up here, when you have the Pro mode enabled, which I do, notice here how you have color. That's DLog-M, and that's the best quality possible that you can get off of the Pocket 3, but it does require you having to grade the footage after the fact, which is why I have color recovery enabled. See that little one below it? That will make it look less flat. So you can see with it off, it's kind of flat looking. With it on, you can see how there's much more contrast. And it basically makes the footage look like what it'll look like after you grade it in post. So when you're using DLog-M, like I said, by default, the footage is going to look flat. So enabling this color recovery will simulate how it will look, but the footage recorded is still going to look flat. So when you bring it onto your computer, you're going to have to apply what's called a LUT, and that's what the DLog-M is. It requires a LUT, and that will bring the contrast back, and that'll give you more latitude to edit colors and highlights and shadows in post-processing. So it gives you like more latitude, like I said, of shooting D-Log. So if you shoot normal on the top there, that will just record it with the, what the camera thinks is the best color and contrast, sharpness, all that stuff will just be embedded into the video file, and just straight off the camera, it'll be turnkey where it's ready to upload. So there won't be any post-processing required. D-Log absolutely requires post-processing. Same with HLG. Now below that, you got stereo, you got wind noise on and off. Exposure alert will basically put zebras, it's called, on what's blown out if it's overexposed. Histogram, that's this thing here. And then timecode display will just add like a time code to your video footage, which is basically like a counter. And so if you're using multiple cameras, you'll be able to sync all the cameras up to that same counter. And that's kind of what timecode is. It's more of an advanced feature. I personally don't use it, but you might need it for your workflow depending on what you're doing with other cameras and stuff like that. And if we click on the second icon, you can see it's the same as photo mode. You can calibrate or go to easy control. And same thing with the bottom one here. It's just the about and stuff like that. Wi-Fi settings and so forth. I'm just going to click that button then to bring it back to the normal position. Alrighty. So what I wanted to show you now was a couple of other modes here. Because we pretty much went over everything in Beginner's Guide Part 1, a lot of it's like redundant with this app. So I'm not going to go through all those settings. I'm just going to kind of show you the advantages of what the app can do. And I find it super helpful, in particular for some of these other modes. But first, let me show you low light mode. So low light mode will default the camera to 4K at 30 frames per second. So you can lower it if you want to 24, but you're very limited in the options. It basically opens up the ISO to 16,000, and it'll just dial in the camera for you a little bit, but it does limit the features. Active track doesn't work in low light mode. So let me just try. See, it says that active track not supported in current mode. So low light works well. It just opens up the shadows a little bit by allowing a higher ISO. As you can see, ISO 16,000 becomes available. If I go back to video and I go back to auto, the max ISO is 3200. See that? So that's the difference with the low light mode. So you kind of have to put it in that mode for low light. And it's, a nice feature. You can definitely get some footage you wouldn't otherwise be able to get. Now we got slow motion here. If we go into slow motion, you could see it's set to 8 times. So if we click over here where the frame rate option was before for, the regular video, this is where you can change your slow motion speed. So remember how I said the options will change? If we go to 4K, we only get 4K 120. If we go to 2.7K, we only get 4 times slow motion. But if we go to 1080, we can get 8 times slow motion. So that's 240 frames per second. So that's slow motion mode, and it's awesome. I'm looking forward to using it with some of my dog Buddy and stuff. So now if we keep scrolling down, what we have here is time lapse. And we're in manual mode, so I'm just going to go back to auto, like so. So now we're in auto time lapse mode. So time-lapse is basically just, it takes like a series of photos over a period of time and then combines them into like a short video. Because remember, there's 24 frames per second if you're recording video at like 4K 24. So that's like 24 photos will end up being 1 second in like a time-lapse. So if you record for like a couple of minutes, you're going to get like a couple of seconds of actual video. So that's how time-lapse works. And if you go in here, you can adjust some of the settings. I'm going to go in here and set it to 4K, like so. 4K 25 or 4K 30 are your options. So I'm just going to leave it at 30. And then if you go up here to the top, we have these options here where you can go in and actually dial in your time lapse. So this is where all the like key features are. So you got fixed angle. So what that means is it's not moving. Now, if you want it to move, you have options. This is now a motion lapse. It's not a time lapse anymore. It's a motion lapse. And you can get to that in here. So you can do custom motion. You could do right to left to right, or fixed angle. So we're just going to leave it on fixed angle for now. I'll show you the motion angle in a second. So then we have interval options here. And notice how it says clouds. And if you scroll, it'll give you like an idea of what to set it to for different situations. See, clouds, sunset, 5 seconds. So you can go through there. So I set it for like 2 seconds for the motion lapse that I did. And then up top here, you can see the duration of the time lapse is 10 minutes. But if you look at the very top, the duration of the actual video is only going to be 10 seconds. So that's how that works. Now, if I change this to 20 minutes, you could see now it's going to be 20 seconds. And if I change it to 3 seconds per photo, it's going to lower to only 13 seconds because now it's going to be taking less photos. So if I'm taking a photo once every 5 seconds, for example, now the video, even though it's 20 minutes long, it's only going to be 8 seconds because I'm taking way less photos, you know? So it's going to end up being less frames, less time ultimately. So let me go into the motion lapse options. So if we go left to right, the camera will basically just go left to right during the motion lapse. So I want to go to custom though. Oops, I'm just going to hit this button to set it back to default. There we go. So I want to go down here and I want to go to custom motion. And I'm going to actually turn my camera to vertical mode here so I can see this a little bit better because when I had it set to landscape, it's kind of hard to see the bottom there. See that? So I just put it into vertical mode, my actual phone here. And I already have 2 in here, custom. So I'm just going to delete those. And this is where you would go to set your custom. All right, so what I'm going to do here is I'm going to set the gimbal where I want. So I'm going to use the joystick and I'm going to set it to like over here. Like that. So then I'm going to bring down this drop down menu. I'm going to go back to motion here, custom motion. I'm going to delete that one and I'm going to add one right there. So now I'm going to move the gimbal to over here and I'm going to add a plus. Then I'm going to bring it back to right about there and I'm going to hit another plus. So now we have 3 custom points programmed in there. And notice this button up here that says preview motion lapse. If I tap that, it'll give you like a preview of where the camera is going to go during the motion lapse. That's what I wanted to show you, that one other thing. Preview time lapse. It's right there written in blue. And it's pretty cool how that works, how it'll show you like what the gimbal will do in advance so you can double check. So that's what motion lapse does. Now, let me show you the last mode, hyperlapse. All right, so now I'm active tracking my face again. So hyperlapse is pretty cool. You got your frame rate here and you have your quality. So 4K, 25 frames is good. Now your speed, I kind of find auto works pretty good. And what happens is with hyperlapse is it's kind of like a motion lapse where you're like walking, so you're actually moving with the gimbal or driving or something like that. I have some footage here of me driving to work, and basically it speeds up the footage like a lot. So you don't want to make like radical movements with the Pocket 3 when you're doing a hyperlapse. You kind of want to keep it pretty steady, and like if you are going to turn it, you want to kind of like keep it on a subject for a little bit before you switch to another subject. Otherwise, it'll be too jerky. But anyways, auto works really good because it'll change the speed based on your speed. So if you're walking really slow, it'll speed it up more. If you're driving in a car, for example, it might slow it down a little bit. So it just kind of knows what you're doing and it'll adapt the hyperlapse for the best quality possible. Now, another thing to keep in mind with hyperlapse is shutter speed. So if you want that really smooth footage, you're going to want the shutter speed to be correct, so right around 1/50th of a second if you're recording 4K 24, for example. And you can speed up your hyperlapse here as well, all the way to 30x if you want. I'm just leaving it in auto though, but that's where those options are. And again, you can go into manual here and dial this stuff in if you want, like I said. So that's pretty much how hyperlapse works. All right, so now what we're going to do is we're going to hit the home button here. And I just wanted to show you here how you have the option to edit. So if you go into the editor, you have the option to do a new project or one-tap edit. So a new project will basically allow you to just build your own movie. And you'll have video files in here once you download them. So if you go into the main album there's going to be more files there because you're looking at what's on the actual gimbal, the Pocket 3, and what's on your device. Remember that little download icon I showed you earlier? So these are the videos that are actually downloaded. So in order to edit a video, you have to have it downloaded to your device, to your phone in my case. So these are the ones that have been downloaded. So if you wanted to select a couple of them, I could just select this clip right here, click next, for example. And now I have this clip in the video editor, and you could play it back and you could watch it. You have all these different editing tools down here. You have edit, music, filter. So if I go into filter, for example, I just wanted to show you guys this because if you're using DLog like I am, DLog-M, that's just a flatter profile, which would give you a little more editing latitude. So you could go in there and change that if you go to color recovery right here. So color recovery will allow you to put it in DLog-M mode, and it'll add like contrast. So it'll kind of fix your footage for you on the app. So it's basically grading that D-Log footage for you on the app. And that is super helpful. So I'm just going to click check, and it has this other option for cinema-like as well. You might like that one better. I'm just going to hit check. So now the footage has been graded like on the device automatically, which is so cool. And you can go in here, you can change your time, you can trim your footage by just clicking on it and then dragging like so. You could, select tools. If you select the cut tool, notice how it just cut, and now I can add a transition effect if I want. And you got all these options on the bottom. You could add music, filter, effects, text, and so forth. You can reverse the clip, copy, delete, change the speed of the clip, as you can see here. Oh, by the way, up on the top here is where your export options are. So if you click here, you can change your frame rate and your resolution, and then hit the export when you're done editing your video. So I could probably spend an hour just explaining how this app works because it's so powerful. But it is kind of cumbersome to use on this device. Like you misclick all the time and stuff. It just is what it is, but it is amazing. And then up here, just real quick, you have your back so you can undo stuff. See split undo. I can just undo that as well and so forth. So that's where you can go. You can also add all these other filters and stuff like that. You can go to Glamour Effects. You can add all that stuff after the fact, which is so cool. And you have all these filters as well if you're looking for like different looks. Get different looks in there and so forth. So I'm just going to click the back button here. Click back again. And I'm going to click one tap edit. Now here is where you can go and the camera will do all the editing for you, which is absolutely unbelievable. So if you just select a couple of clips, right? I'm just going to select a few clips here. Click next. It's actually going to analyze and make a movie for me using one of the presets, whatever preset I had selected. I'll show you the presets in a second. Loading the template. The template is like the preset. So this is what it did. I made a 1:14 long, movie here, and it's just cutting through the clips here, doing its own thing. Quite amazing. Isn't this cool? Now you can change the template. You got all these templates down here, and it'll just re-edit it for that template and that music. You can go in here to edit. Here's your text, filters, and so forth. If I go into filter, again, I can go into color recovery and do DLog-M and apply to all. Apply to all. Yes, I want DLog-M. So now all the clips should be set for DLog-M, which is good. But you can go in here to edit, and this is where you can go and now edit the little movie that it made for you. I mean, it's incredible. You could replace clips, crop, extract, delete. You could just select them. You can go into edit more. If you hold down, you could just drag and drop and change the order if you want. Like so. That's like easy editing. And then you can hit confirm order. But if you go up here to edit more, that brings you into like the like more heavy duty editor that you saw a minute ago. So now you can go in here. Uh-oh, my battery's getting low. So now you can go in here and you can edit the footage more. And again, you can just export it up there when you're ready to go at the given settings. So I'm just going to go back here, do a save and exit. That's fine. And notice up here on the top right, we have this option for drafts. So these are the little ones, the little videos that I've been playing with using that auto template and just playing with it. So it will save your drafts if you're like working and you got to go back to doing something else. You won't lose your progress. You can just save it and it's in there. So the one other thing I wanted to mention, which I forgot to mention in the video, is the audio. Mic here, if you turn that on while using the app, it works exactly the same way as it did on the gimbal. It just automatically connects. So, and you can go in there and add another transmitter and stuff. There's a little icon that shows up on the top. So it works exactly the same as it does with the gimbal. So I forgot to show you that. But there is a visual indication on the app. All right, guys, that about wraps up this part 2 beginner's guide for the DJI Pocket 3 covering the DJI Mimo app, which is honestly a lot more powerful than I expected it to be. It actually works really good, way better than some of the other manufacturers' apps, Sony, work. And, you know, you kind of unlocks everything. You know, I'm very impressed with the app, and I really enjoy using it on the iPhone screen, which is a super high quality screen. So you can see things way better than you can on the cheaper, smaller screen that doesn't tilt. You know, I do a lot of recording with the camera on the ground, and I always flip the screen up like when I'm using a regular camera. So I'd much prefer using my phone for that. And it pretty much works effortlessly. Like it doesn't disconnect all the time or anything like that. So I don't really have any complaints about the app. You know, I mean, apps are usually finicky when you're controlling cameras. This is one of the best apps I've ever used as far as controlling the camera and not having it glitch or like disconnect randomly or whatever. So highly recommend checking it out. I really hope you got something out of this video. If you did, I'd greatly appreciate it if you give me a thumbs up. Thank you. And please consider hitting that subscribe button as well. I will have the ND filters linked below. This kit, it actually came with a screen protector also, which is quite nice, and a little lens cloth because you know your grubby fingers are going to end up touching those filters. It's almost impossible not to touch them, I got to say. But anyways, those links will be below. I appreciate you guys supporting the channel by clicking those affiliate links. Thank you. If you guys have any questions or comments, please feel free to ask below, and I'll try my best to help. All right, guys, I really appreciate you watching my video, and I will catch up with you next time. Take care.